Welcome back, my family. Before we jump into today's horror stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Your comments and likes really help YouTube push our video and show you even more stories. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop your answers and suggestions in the comments, and who knows, I might give you a shout out in the next video. Thank you for being here and for all your amazing support. I was 16 this summer. I met Tyler Reeves, and my world felt small in the way small towns always do. Pine Rovive, Minnesota, is pine trees and Tulane roads, a dairy freeze that opens in April if the snow melts early, and the dull thump of bass from pickup trucks in a lot behind the football field. I worked the concession stand at the community pool, saved tips in a mason jar, and told myself I was almost grown. I didn't feel brave. I felt bored. My best friend Jenna talked me into downloading True Match. It's just for fun, she said, chewing a red Twizzler and leaning over my shoulder. You can practice saying no, or yes, whatever. I set my age to 16, wrote 3 lines about liking iced coffee and swim team, and posted a picture of me and my dog Moose. Most of the boys were from towns I'd heard of, but never visited. Then a profile popped up, Tyler, 17. Dark hair, gray hoodie, crooked smile. He wrote that he had left high school early to take community college classes after a plagiarism thing, but he said it like a joke, adding a shrugging emoji. He liked hiking, old horror movies, and late-night drives. It was the late-night drives that made me hesitate. But the app said we matched, and he messaged first. Hey neighbor, he wrote, your dog is cooler than me. I laughed and typed back something dumb about Moose stealing my socks. It was easy. Tyler sent me a photo of the view from the lake at sunset. Then one of his car, a beat-up sedan with a cracked dashboard and a hanging pine tree air freshener. He said he loved the smell of pine, even though we were surrounded by it already. He made me feel like I was in on a joke no one else got. We talked for a week before he asked to meet. Just coffee, he wrote. Public place. I promise I'm not a creep. We met at Bean there on Main Street. He was taller than I expected and skinnier, with dark stubble that made him look older. He wore the same gray hoodie from his profile, sleeves pushed to his elbows, even though the air conditioning was high. He made me laugh. He told me stories about dropping out and taking classes at the community college 2 towns over. I'm ahead of my class now, he said, tapping his cup. High school was a waste. Teachers hate anyone who's different. I nodded even though I didn't know if that was true. He didn't act like someone embarrassed about leaving. He acted proud. He asked questions about my parents, my schedule, which days I worked the pool. He remembered details. It felt good to be seen. After coffee, he offered to drive me home. I know you live close, he said, but it's hot out. He held the passenger door like a gentleman. The car smelled like fake pine and something else, old fast food, maybe. I gave him my street, but not my house number. When we got close, I told him to drop me at the corner. He joked that I was mysterious. I laughed again and waved as he drove off. That night, he texted, "Made it home, thanks for hanging." I stared at the screen, smiling. It had been fine, normal. I didn't see the little things then. The second time we met, he took me to the old lookout tower on Pine Rovive Ridge. It was closed after a storm warped the steps, but everyone still climbed it. He said he loved the way the town looked from up there, so small, like a toy set. He put his arm around me as the sun went down. It was quick, not pushy. I didn't move away, but I didn't lean in either. I told him I needed to be home before dark. He looked disappointed, then covered it with a smile. The third time, he showed up outside the pool right when my shift ended, leaning on his car like he'd been waiting forever. I figured I'd save you the walk, he said. He'd cut his hair himself. It was uneven by 1 ear, and the hoodie sleeves were fraying at the cuffs. He grabbed my backpack before I could and tossed it in the back seat. We drove with the windows down, his music low. He knew the names of streets I didn't, back roads where the trees leaned over like a tunnel. I told myself it was sweet that he learned my schedule so fast. He started texting more. "Good morning, beautiful," at 6:03 a.m. heading to class. "Miss you already. Send pic." I sent a photo of my coffee and Moose's paws. He wanted one of me. I sent a shot of my face, half asleep, hair in a bun. He sent back a flame emoji. It made me blush. It also made me feel watched. When he asked me to be his girlfriend, I told him I wasn't ready. School started in a month. Swim practice. ACT prep. "Let's just be friends," I said, soft voice, like if I spoke gently it wouldn't hurt him. His face shuddered in a way I didn't understand. "Friends," he said slowly, like it was a word he had never heard. "Sure. Yeah, friends." After that, the tone of his messages changed. He asked where I was, who I was with. He made jokes about other boys. "Who's that kid at the pool with the stupid blonde hair?" he wrote. "Does he know you're taken?" LOL. When I answered that I wasn't taken, he didn't reply for an hour. Then he sent a selfie of him staring dead at the camera, captioned, "You will be." I told Jen I was done. "I'm going to block him," I said. We sat in her bedroom, the fan whirring, the August air heavy. She bit her lip and said I should do it, then reminded me to tell my parents if he made a scene. I promised I would. That night, when I turned off my lamp, I felt odd. My window was cracked for breeze. The pine outside brushed the siding. Our street was quiet, dogs barking in the distance, a far-off train. I scrolled through my phone in the pale light. A message from Tyler popped up. "Come outside." My heart skipped. I typed no. Another message. LOL kidding. Sweet dreams. I put the phone face down and tried to sleep. It took a long time. The next morning, there was a photo in my messages. It was me, sleeping. Hair spread across my pillow. Mouth slightly open. The shot was angled from outside, through the gap in my curtains. You could see the reflection of the pine tree in the glass. My hand shook. I typed, "Where did you get that?" He wrote, "Don't be mad. You look peaceful." I couldn't help it. My vision tunneled. I blocked his number. I blocked him on the app. I told myself it was a prank, a filter, something Jenna would uncover when she zoomed in and found a clue. I told myself he hadn't been outside my house in the dark, breathing my air, watching me sleep. By lunch, the photo had been posted in a group chat that included seniors I barely knew. Someone wrote, "Tyler showing off his girl." Another wrote, "Creepy flex dude." Someone else added a skull emoji and said they'd seen others. Pictures of me in the kitchen, in my driveway, reading on the porch steps. "He's like National Geographic," a boy joked. "Wild girl in her natural habitat." I locked myself in a bathroom stall and tried not to cry. I told the principal. I told my parents. My dad's face went red in a way I hadn't seen since my brother broke a window playing baseball. He called the police. An officer took notes and said they would talk to the boy. He kept saying boy, like it made it less. Jenna drove me home. Dad installed a motion sensor on the back porch and a new lock on my window. He told me to keep my blinds shut. Mom stood in the doorway with her arms folded, hair falling out of her bun. "This is over," she said, like it was as simple as flipping a switch. That night, I slept on the couch in the living room with Moose at my feet. Every creak sounded like a footstep. Every car light across the ceiling made me flinch. At 2 a.m., the motion light clicked on. Dad bolted up. He went outside with a flashlight and came back tight-lipped. "Raccoon," he said, but his voice said he wasn't sure. For 2 days, my phone was quiet. The group chat went dead. I told myself it was done. I took showers with the bathroom window locked and my music loud. I tried to forget the sliver of a face I thought I'd seen once, between the curtain and the glass. On the third night, I woke to the soft scrape of metal. At first, I thought it was the pine tree. Then I heard the window latch lift. My whole body went cold. I lay perfectly still because that is what you do when something is hunting you. You go quiet, you make yourself small. The window eased up. The screen pushed in with a dry pop. A shape slid through the gap and dropped on my bedroom floor. I smelled him first. Sweat, cold air, pine. He stood between the window and my bed, a shadow against a darker shadow. He stood still for a long time, and the silence pressed against my eardrums. Then he moved closer. The knife in his hand caught a slice of moonlight. It was small, the kind you keep in a pocket, but it was still a knife. He held it like he wanted me to see it. "It's me," he whispered. "Don't scream." My voice wouldn't work even if I wanted to. I felt like a doll. He reached out and touched a strand of my hair, very softly, as if he could make it not a violation by being gentle. "I just need you to listen," he said. "We got off track. People talk. They don't know us." I found my voice thin and shaking. "Get out." He tilted his head like I'd said something funny. "This is my last chance," he said. "I have to fix it. You can't block me in real life." He took another step, the knife hanging, his other hand open like he was showing he meant no harm. That made it worse. It made it clear he'd thought this through. I inhaled to scream, and he moved quick, hand over my mouth, the knife lifting, not quite touching my throat, but near. "Shoo," he breathed, his cheek almost touching mine. "You'll wake them, and then I'll do something we both regret." A sound came from the hallway. Floorboards. My dad. Tyler froze, eyes wide, and pulled his hand away like it burned. He backed up fast, the knife between us again, his breath hard. "I didn't want this," he whispered. The door burst open. The hallway light flared behind my dad, making him a shape with shoulders. He didn't say a word. He charged. Tyler stumbled back, slammed into the dresser, and swung the knife without looking. It caught the edge of my blanket. Dad grabbed his wrist, and they went down hard, a messy tangle of limbs and sound. Moose lunged and barked so loud my ears rang. Mom screamed my name. I dropped off the far side of the bed and crawled toward the door as the two of them fought. The knife skittered across the floor and hit the wall with a clink. Dad pinned Tyler's arm with a grunt, but Tyler was wiry and fast. He twisted, jerked free, and bolted for the window. He dove through the gap, knocking the screen fully loose, and vanished into the dark. The motion light flared, then went dead. My dad gasped on the floor, chest heaving. Mom knelt beside him, hands shaking, asking if he was cut. He wasn't, not more than a scrape. I stood in the doorway, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. The police came. They took photos, measured the window, dusted for prints. I sat on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders and Moose pressed to my legs like a second heartbeat. An officer named Barnes knelt in front of me and asked me to tell the story in order. I tried. My words came out in bursts, like someone else's voice. They found Tyler the next day. He was at a friend's place, hiding under a blanket in a basement, like a kid playing hide and seek. He didn't look scared in his mugshot. He looked annoyed. There were hearings. I missed school to sit in rooms that smelled like old coffee and paper. Tyler's lawyer wore a tie with little anchors on it and said words like overblown and misunderstood. He said Tyler had boundary issues but was not violent, that the knife was for protection, that he panicked. The prosecutor read messages Tyler had sent to other people, photos of me sleeping, captions with laughing emojis, a video of my kitchen window with the sound of his breathing on the audio. She said predatory and pattern and escalation. They charged him with breaking and entering, stalking, and attempted murder. The words sounded like a story you watch on TV. They didn't sound like me. But when they played the audio from a neighbor's security camera, the scrape of the screen, the dog bark, my mother's scream, my stomach clenched and wouldn't let go. Tyler stared at me when I testified. He didn't look angry. He looked careful, like he was trying to memorize my face for later. When a verdict came, my dad squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Guilty on all counts. The judge, a woman with a voice that carried, said things about safety and harm. She sentenced him to 16 years. I counted on my fingers without meaning to. I would be 32 when he got out. Older than my mom had been when she had me. It felt like forever and also like tomorrow. Months went by. Fall came, and with it the slow grind of routines. I went to practice, ate dinner at the table, did homework with my window locked. I thought I was okay, and sometimes I was. Then a letter arrived from the county. Tyler had appealed the attempted murder charge. He said it was excessive. He said he never meant to hurt me, just to talk. On appeal, that charge was reduced. The number on paper changed. The word attempted turned into something softer in legal language. The 16 years stayed, but part of me felt like I had been told again that I was overreacting. People moved on. The group chat dissolved into new gossip. Being there added a seasonal latte. The pool closed. The pine outside my window dropped needles that got stuck in the gutter and made a sound like rain. Every now and then, I woke in the middle of the night with the taste of coins in my mouth and the feeling of breath in my ear. I would sit up and count to 100 until my heartbeat slowed. I went to therapy. At first, I hated it. Hated sitting in a room with posters about feelings and saying out loud. He came into my room with a knife. The therapist, a woman named Diane, told me I was allowed to be brave and scared at the same time. She taught me how to press a cold ice pack to my wrist when my mind went white. She asked me to write down the story in my own words, not the ones from the news or the courtroom. I tried. I wrote about the pine smell and the way the knife flashed and how small the town looked from the lookout. I wrote about the first coffee, the stupid hoodie, the way my name sounded flat when he said it. One afternoon, Jenna and I drove to the ridge like we used to. The tower was still closed. We sat on the hood of her car and watched the town shrink in the distance. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're still you," she said. And because she was Jenna, I believed her a little. I changed small things. I put dowels in the tracks of the windows at night. I learned moose's bark, how one kind meant squirrel and another meant person. I deleted True Match. I left my blinds closed at bedtime and opened them in the morning like a victory. I got used to the blank space behind the glass and the way it no longer felt like an open mouth. In the spring, Officer Barnes stopped by to say the appeal was done. "He's staying where he is," he said, shifting his hat in his hands. "You'll get notices any time something changes. That's the law now." He asked how school was. I told him I was tired of math. He laughed softly and said he'd felt the same at 16. Sometimes people ask me why I tell this story. They ask if it gives Tyler power to hear his name. Maybe it does, but it gives me something too. It gives me the right words. Not the ones that say overblown or boundary issues. Not the ones that make the knife a misunderstanding or the photos a joke. My words, the ones that say, "He watched me. He came in through my window. He held a knife. My dad stopped him. He ran. He was caught. He was convicted. He is gone." I don't think about him every day. I think about him when the wind hits the siding just so, or when I see boys in gray hoodies with sleeves frayed at the cuffs, or when I hear a joke about late night drives and someone's laugh rides it like a wave. I think about him when I smell fake pine. I think about closing the window, the click of the lock, the way my hand felt steady on the latch. I think about that steady feeling more than anything else. If you asked me who I was at 16, I'd say I was a girl in a small town who wanted to be seen but not hunted. I wanted to be chosen without being claimed. I wanted late night drives that ended at home, not in a courtroom. I wanted the kind of story that isn't a story at all because nothing bad happens in it, because there's nothing to tell. But this is a story I have. It is not dramatic in the way of a movie, even if parts of it play like one in my head. It is made of small choices and slow dread and one night that split my life into before and after. It is made of my father's footsteps, my mother's scream, a dog's bark, a window latch lifting, a knife catching a ribbon of moonlight. It is made of a judge's voice and a sentence that sounds like a long time and also like a blink. I'm still here. I still sleep in the room with a window that once opened when it shouldn't have. I still wake some nights and listen to the pine brush the siding. I still count to 100. On good nights, I get to 10 and stop because I'm already drifting. On bad nights, I get to 100 twice, and then I get up, pad to the kitchen, drink water, and look out at the dark yard. The motion light sometimes clicks on for a raccoon or a fox or nothing at all. I watch it anyway, just long enough to feel the fear rise and fall and pass through me like a wave that doesn't break. In the morning, I open the blinds. I let the sun in. I take Moose for a walk down the street that feels like mine again. I buy coffee at Bean There and write college essay drafts that talk about resilience without using the word. I sit with Jenna on the hood of her car, and we make plans that are not about running away, but about moving forward. I tell the truth, the whole thing, plain and easy, so that some other girl who thinks she is bored, who thinks attention is love, and love means access, can hear it. So she can recognize the smell of fake pine, the shape of a line crossed, the sound of a latch lifting in the night before it lifts. So she can close her window and lock it, steady hand, and know that stopping something isn't being mean. It's staying alive. It's staying you. It's staying. A quick announcement here. If you're still here and enjoying these stories but haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do so. Drop a comment too. It really helps push the video out to more people. Your support means everything, and it truly makes my day. Seven years after my wife, Rachel, died in a drunk driving wreck, the house finally went quiet enough to scare me. I could do the dishes, pay the bills, mow the lawn, basic stuff, but the quiet had a way of standing in the doorway like a person. One Sunday, my buddy Ben grilled burgers and said what everyone else avoided: "You should try online dating, man. It's 2025, not the county fair." That night, I made a Match.com profile. I typed and deleted until what was left sounded like me. Middle-aged, likes diners, hikes and fall, learning how to live with the silence. My photo was me holding a tiny fish at Lake Avery, smiling like I didn't know how. A message came from Samantha. In her profile, picture a woman with brown hair wore a blue scarf and a calm smile. She lived near Fairview, liked dive bars, books, and trying new recipes. Her first note was simple: "Your fish is adorable. Coffee sometime." We messaged for a week. She worked in marketing, loved fall sunsets, and said Johnson's Tavern was the best place for a first meet because the bartender poured strong. She put a winky face after that. We sat Wednesday at 7. I said I preferred diners to bars. She said Johnson's was practically a diner with neon. I arrived early. Johnson's is wood paneling, old beer signs, a jukebox that eats dollar bills, and the hum of people who know each other's business. Gabby was behind the bar. I knew her in the way you know good bartenders: her braid, the quick grin, the way she had once slid me a whiskey without asking on a bad anniversary. She poured me a club soda and joked that if I got stood up, the cheeseburger would heal most wounds. At 7:02, the door opened and the woman from the photo walked in. Same hair, same blue scarf. She waved, small and careful, and came over. Up close, she looked a touch different, the way everyone does under bar lights, but close enough. We shook hands. "Daniel," she said. "I'm Samantha." Gabby came to take her order. "Merlot," Samantha said, reaching for her purse. "Can I see your ID?" Gabby asked. She didn't say it rude. She said it the way you ask for salt. "Of course," Samantha said. She handed it over. Gabby looked once, twice, then said she'd be right back and walked to the phone at the end of the bar. I tried small talk. "You like Johnson's?" "It's familiar," she said. Her hand kept kneading the edge of the scarf. "But I like quiet better." "We can talk here," I said. "I can still hear you." She smiled. though it didn't reach her eyes. "You look exactly like your photo," she said. "That's rare." "So do you?" I said. My stomach didn't buy it. Gabby reappeared and put the ID on our table with her palm over it. "Daniel," she said, nodding toward the end of the bar. "Can I grab you for a second?" "Sure," I said, glancing at Samantha, who kept her smile but narrowed her eyes. At the jukebox, Gabby spoke low. "I've seen that exact photo on a warning flyer," she said. "A guy uses it to catfish men. He meets them at bars, lures them outside, robs them, sometimes follows them. He was picked up, then released. The cops asked us to call if anyone matched it. I just did. Don't leave this room with that person. Officer Miller is 2 minutes away." I looked back. Samantha watched us with a stillness that felt like someone holding their breath. "I'll keep you here," Gabby said. "Stay in the light." I went back to the table on wooden legs. "Everything okay?" Samantha asked. "Yeah," I said. "Tab stuff." She leaned in. "It's loud here. We could go to my car. It's right out back." "I'm good," I said. "I like the noise." Something shifted. The smile flattened. Her shoulders dropped. For a beat, her voice slid lower. "You sure?" she asked, and the shape of the words was wrong for the face. The front door opened. Officer Miller, familiar as the high school mascot, came in. He scanned, saw us, and walked over with that friendly posture cops use when they're about to ruin someone's night. "Evening," he said. "Mind if I take another look at your ID?" The laminate flashed funny. "Is there a problem?" Samantha asked, voice hopping up again. "Probably not," he said. "Just being thorough." She handed it over. He held it under the light and asked, "What's your address?" "It's on there," she said. "I know," he said. "But where is it?" She said a street name from the wrong town. Miller's smile didn't move. "Could you step this way for me?" "No," she said, standing fast. The chair scraped. "I'm leaving." "That's an option," he said. "But not tonight." "Charles, sit down." Hearing that name felt like a plate drop. For a split second, Samantha's face let go of pretty. Jaw hard, eyes flat. Then the smile came back like a mask being set in place. She reached for her purse. Quick, but Miller was quicker. He turned her, hands behind, cuffs clicked. Another officer appeared from the doorway to the hall. They walked Samantha out. The blue scarf dangled crooked, like a shed skin. The door closed. The jukebox hummed into silence. Someone muttered, "Holy crap." Gabby's hand was on my shoulder. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. My voice sounded new, like I was trying on. She slid me water. "You did everything right. You stayed." Miller came back. "You all right, Daniel?" "Yeah." I'm in it more than I had 10 minutes earlier. "We've been trying to catch him in the act," Miller said. "Name's Charles Avery. He's been posing as women online, using stolen photos and fake IDs. Meets guys here, walks them outside, robs them. One man was followed home. Tonight, we lucked out. We'll need a statement later." He paused. "Don't beat yourself up. Guys like him count on decent people being lonely. That isn't a crime." I nodded because I couldn't do more. I drove the long way home. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old wood. I set my keys down, opened the fridge, and stared at the place where Rachel's grocery list had hung for years. I tucked it into a drawer before the date, like I was cleaning for company. I took it out, read her last 3 items, paprika, bay leaves, thyme, then slid it back in. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore, just making room on a crowded shelf. 2 days later, Miller called. They'd charged Charles with fraud, identity theft, stalking, and attempted robbery. He'd cut off an ankle monitor before meeting me at Johnson's. "You'll get a subpoena for the messages," Miller said. "Thank Gabby if you see her." I brought Johnson's a thank you card and a coffee shop gift card. Gabby taped the card to the wall behind the bottles. "We're not just here to pour drinks," she said, smiling. In the quiet after, the house felt aired out, like after a storm. I didn't delete Match. I just left it alone. I fixed a leaky faucet. I bought some of Rachel's sweaters and kept one that still faintly smelled like her shampoo. I learned how to sleep with the TV off again. I practiced saying out loud, "I'm a widower," without clearing my throat. When I reopened the app a few weeks later, I changed my bio, not in a rush. Real names only. Public places. Bring your own story. A woman named Emily matched with me. Her photo featured a basset hound in a ridiculous sweater. Her bio said she was trying to bake a loaf of bread that didn't collapse. She asked about diners. I told her about the one with the flickering neon coffee cup that never gives up. She sent a laughing emoji and said she liked stubborn lights. We met there one evening, pancakes and bottomless coffee under that buzzing sign. She looked like her picture. She laughed like she meant it. We talked about how strange it is to arrange yourself into words for strangers, and how sometimes the simplest rules are the ones that keep you safe. I didn't dump my whole history on the table. I just told enough truth to feel like a person again. I like late-night baseball on the radio. I'm learning how to sleep. I know a bartender who saved me from the wrong kind of quiet. When I got home, I wrote 4 things on a clean sticky note and stuck it to the fridge: milk, coffee, flour, yeast. My handwriting, not Rachel's. I stood there a moment, looking at both papers, the old list in the drawer, the new list on the door, and felt something like a balance, the way 2 sounds can be different and still harmonize. In the weeks after the arrest, I learned small lessons I wish I'd known earlier. First, a real person has little inconsistencies that make sense. Work stories, cramped schedules, a way of laughing that there's alone. A liar can copy the shape of life, but misses the mess. Second, you don't owe anyone a parking lot. If someone pushes toward the dark, the answer is always no. Third, pay attention to the people who pay attention. A good bartender, a careful cop, a friend who says try again. Those folks are the handrail when the stairs go slick. Sometimes at night, I still hear the house breathe and think it's Rachel turning over on the couch. I still talk to her when I burn toast, but the quiet doesn't stand in the doorway the same way. It sits like a cat and lets me move around it. A few months later, Miller called to say a judge denied Charles's bail. "We'll keep you posted on the court date," he said. "Thanks again for sticking around that night." "Thank Abby," I said. "I already did," he replied, and I could hear him smile. I still go to Johnson's now and then. I order the cheeseburger that was supposed to heal most wounds. Gabby asks about work. I ask about her garden. On the walk back to my car, I look at the back lot, the place Samantha wanted me to go, and I feel the solid light of the sign on my shoulders. I don't tell myself a big story about bravery. I just unlock my car, drive home, and keep the lights I need turned on. My name is Mark, and for most of my adult life, I thought I was a pretty rational guy. I work in tech in Fairfield, Ohio. I debug code, fix servers, and drink too much coffee out of paper cups. Nothing in my world suggested I'd ever run for my life from a farmhouse straight out of a nightmare. It started after a breakup. 5 years with someone I thought I'd marry ended with her telling me she was done with routine. I buried myself in work until the nights got too quiet. That's when I downloaded Tinder. Most of it was swipes and boredom until I matched with Clara. She was 27, dark hair, round glasses, and this calm smile that felt real. Her bio said she was taking care of her paralyzed grandfather on his old farm outside town. It sounded heavy, but also selfless. When she messaged me first, "You look like you'd appreciate a good home-cooked meal," I laughed and answered. We talked for a week. She told me about growing up on the farm, about how her grandfather had been a tough man before an accident left him wheelchair-bound. She said she cooked for him every night and that the isolation sometimes got to her. I told her about my job and my love for old sci-fi movies. She sent me a picture of her porch with cornfields stretching forever. It felt real, grounded. Finally, she invited me over for dinner. I drove 30 minutes out of town, GPS leading me to a farmhouse at the end of a gravel road. The house looked worn but cared for, peeling paint, but the porch light glowed warm. My stomach flipped with nerves. Clara greeted me at the door in a faded yellow dress. She was prettier than her photos, but in a quiet way, like someone you'd notice after 3 conversations, not at first glance. She hugged me lightly, and I caught a faint smell of lavender. "Come in," she said. The kitchen hit me first. Counters stacked with raw meat, piles of it, like a butcher had just walked away. Bowls of dark liquid sat uncovered. I thought maybe she was mid-prep, though I didn't see a single vegetable or spice jar. "Sorry for the mess," she said, noticing my glance. "Grandpa likes his protein." She laughed, but it didn't land. We sat at a table while she poured me wine. The house creaked in odd ways, like beams shifting, though the air felt damp and heavy. "Do you want to meet him?" she asked suddenly. "Your grandfather?" "Yeah. He doesn't talk much, but he likes seeing new faces." Something in her tone made me nod, though my skin prickled. She led me down a narrow hall toward a door. The smell changed as we moved, stronger, metallic like rust and rot. She pushed the door open. The basement was dim, lit by a single bulb that swung slightly. Shelves lined the walls, and my brain refused to register what sat on them at first. Jars. Dozens of jars. Inside each floated pieces, fingers, cloudy eyes, strips of skin pressed against the glass. Hooks hung from the beams, and from them dangled shapes I didn't want to name. A rib cage, a jawbone still with teeth. I staggered back while burning my throat. Then I heard him. In the corner, a wheelchair faced the wall. Slowly it turned. The figure sitting there was impossibly thin, skin gray and tight like paper. His mouth stretched into a grin that showed jagged, too long teeth. His eyes, dead and wet, locked on mine. He chuckled, low and unnatural, the sound vibrating in my chest. Clara's voice cut through. "Don't run. He hates when they run." That broke me. I bolted, shoving past her, up the stairs 2 at a time. She shouted something I didn't hear. The house seemed to twist around me. Hallways too long, doors wrong. Somehow I found the front, yanked it open, and sprinted into the night. I didn't stop until I reached my car. My hand shook so bad it took 3 tries to get the keys in. I peeled out down the gravel road, dust choking the air, heart hammering. The next morning I called the police. 2 officers came to my apartment, listened to my stammered account, and wrote notes. When they went to investigate, the farmhouse was empty. Dust everywhere. No meat, no jars, no Clara. Neighbors said no one had lived there for 20 years. The last owner, a man named Raymond Fletcher, who died in 2002. They show me old photos. The house was the same. Clara wasn't in any records. For weeks, I woke at night to the sound of creaking floorboards. Once, I swore I heard a chuckle from outside my window. I deleted Tinder. I stopped driving on country roads. But sometimes when I pass farmland, I see a figure on a porch in a faded yellow dress, watching. And I remember that grin in the dark basement, teeth too sharp for a human mouth, and I wonder if I actually escaped. When you're 20 and living in a dorm at Lakewood University, loneliness feels louder than anything else. My roommates were always out, parties, girlfriends, study groups I wasn't invited to. I'd sit at my desk, pretending to do civil engineering homework, the glow of my phone tempting me to open apps I promised myself I wouldn't. That's how I ended up on Plenty of Fish. It felt harmless. Half the profiles looked fake, half were people clearly out of my league. But then I got a message from Allison. She said she was 19, a freshman English major. Her profile picture showed a girl with long blonde hair, sitting cross-legged on grass with a book in her lap. Her smile was soft, not posed. "Hey," she wrote. "You seem normal. That's rare." That line hooked me. We started talking every night. She asked about my classes, joked about engineers being boring, sent me playlists full of bands I'd never heard of. I felt seen. One night, after a week of messages, the conversation turned flirtier. She asked if I thought she was pretty. I said yes. She asked if I wanted to see her without the book in front of her face. My stomach flipped. A picture came through. Allison in a tank top, hair spilling over her shoulders, lips parted just enough to make my brain short out. I told myself this was normal, that this was what everyone did. I sent a picture back, shirtless, nothing too explicit. She complimented my shoulders. Then came another photo from her, topless, looking straight at the camera. My chest tightened with excitement and fear. I sent more. It went on for days. Each night riskier. Each photo a little more than the last. I thought I was in some secret relationship, that I'd finally broken out of the loneliness. Then came the call. It was a Saturday afternoon. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe. A man's voice, deep and angry. "Are you the one sending pictures to my daughter?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "My daughter Allison. She's 15. 15. You've been sending her disgusting photos. Do you know what kind of trouble you're in?" My blood ran cold. She told me she was 19. I stammered. "That's what predators always say." The man barked. "I've got all the screenshots. Every single one. I should call the police right now. You'd be in jail before dinner." I couldn't breathe. My hand shook so bad I almost dropped the phone. "I didn't know," I whispered. "You ruined my daughter's innocence," he growled. "Do you realize what they'll do to you in prison? Do you realize what your parents will think?" Tears burned my eyes. "Please." "I didn't know." There was silence, then a sigh. "Look, maybe we can work this out. I don't want her name dragged through court. I don't want the embarrassment for my family. But this goes away if you compensate me for the damage." My heart pounded. "Compensate you?" $11,000, he said flatly. "Cash. You transfer it to me, this disappears. Otherwise, I'm forwarding everything to the police and your university. You'll be expelled before Monday." I don't even remember hanging up. I just sat there, shaking. My roommates came in later and found me pale and sweating. I told them everything in a rush, expecting them to laugh at me. Instead, one said, "Dude, you need to tell your parents." I called my mom that night, voice breaking. I expected her to scream. Instead, she got quiet and said, "We'll figure this out." My parents drove 2 hours the next morning. My dad looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. "Show me the number," he said. I handed him my phone. He called it. Disconnected. He tried again. Nothing. "They're scammers," he said finally. "They trick young men with fake profiles, get them to send photos, then blackmail them. You're not the first." "But what if she really was?" I started. "She wasn't," he cut me off. "This is a trap, and you walked into it. But we'll deal with it." Despite his words, the damage was done. For a week, I jumped every time my phone buzzed, sure it was the police. I couldn't focus in class. I replayed every message, every picture, hating myself for being so stupid. My parents, scared of what might happen, ended up paying. $11,000 wired to an untraceable account. The scammer never called again. The number stayed dead. The silence after was almost worse. I never saw Allison again, not on the app, not anywhere. Her profile vanished. Months have passed, but I still live with the fear. Every time my phone rings from an unknown number, my chest tightens. Every time I think about dating apps, my stomach turns. I tell myself it was just a scam, that Allison never existed, that no 15-year-old was actually involved. But sometimes, late at night, I remember the softness of that first message. "You seem normal," and wonder who was really behind it. I still check my window blinds before bed. I still half expect a knock on the door from a man in uniform. And sometimes I wonder if the photos I sent are still out there, traded around, proof of how loneliness can turn into horror in the space of a single swipe. My name is Jason. I'm 32, live in Cleveland, and work in IT for a mid-sized company. Most of my life is predictable. Servers, tickets, energy drinks, and late nights staring at lines of code. I thought predictability meant safety, but predictability also makes you careless. It started after my girlfriend, Julia, cheated. 5 years together, and she broke it off with a coworker from her office. I told myself I was fine, buried myself in projects at work, and tried to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. But nights are harder. So, against my better judgment, I downloaded Tinder. That's where I met Elena. Her profile stood out because she wasn't just another smiling selfie. She had artsy shots, angles of city streets, a blurred hand in motion, shadows crossing an empty kitchen. Her bio said, "Photographer. I capture what people don't notice." She messaged first, "You look like someone who hates being photographed." She was right. I laughed and admitted it. She said that made me the perfect subject. Her tone was sharp but playful, and it pulled me in. We talked for weeks. She was 28, said she worked freelance, mostly candid photography. She told me she specialized in catching people in their real state, not when they're pretending. When I asked what she meant, she wrote, "The best photos are taken when people don't know they're being watched." It unsettled me a little, but I brushed it off as artsy talk. Eventually, she invited me over to her apartment downtown. The building was old brick, converted lofts. Her unit was on the 3rd floor. The first thing I noticed walking in was the smell, chemicals, and dust like a photo lab. Then the walls. Every inch was covered with pinned-up photographs. At first, I thought they were just street shots, people walking, sitting on benches, standing at bus stops. But then I realized the faces weren't blurred. They were close, intimate, private moments. A man brushing his teeth, a woman folding laundry through a window, a couple asleep in bed, light from blinds striping their skin. My chest tightened. These people, did they know you were taking these? Elena smiled, lighting a cigarette. Of course not. That's the art, the rawness. I forced a laugh. Isn't that illegal? Only if you get caught, she said, blowing smoke toward the photos. We drank wine, though my nerves made my hand shake. She watched me more than she talked. Then she stood, gestured to a curtain covering one wall. "Want to see my masterpiece?" Before I could answer, she pulled the curtain back. A chair sat in the middle of the room, and it was a woman, or what was left of one. Her body was decomposed, skin gray and sagging, hair matted. The smell hit me like a fist, sweet and rotten. I stumbled back, gagging. Elena's eyes lit up. She was perfect. I watched her for weeks before I took this. The stillness, the surrender. Death is the truest, candid moment. I bolted for the door. She didn't try to stop me. She just laughed, the sound sharp and broken, echoing off the photographs. I drove straight to the police station, heart hammering, repeating what I'd seen. 2 officers took my statement, skeptical but obligated. They followed me back to the apartment. When we got there, the walls were bare. The photos were gone. The chair was gone. The smell was gone. The apartment was spotless, as if no one had ever lived there. The landlord said the unit had been vacant for 6 months. For days I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Stress, heartbreak, too much wine. But then, a week later, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. Inside was a single photo. It was me, sitting at a cafe, looking at my laptop, taken from outside the window. On the back, written in sharp black ink, "Now I've watched you." Since then, I keep my blinds shut. I avoid cafes, bars, anywhere with glass. Every time I feel eyes on me, I wonder if she's there. Elena, the photographer, waiting for the moment I forget she exists. The scariest part? She doesn't need to kill me. She just needs to keep watching one photo at a time until I disappear into her collection. My name is Ashley. I was 25, freshly single, and thought I was finally ready to start over. After 3 messy years with Caleb, controlling, jealous, always turning fights into screaming matches, I told myself I deserved something new, something real. That's when I met Ryan Matthews. At least, that's what he called himself. I found him on Bumble first. His profile was clean, 27, mechanical engineer, liked hiking and classic cars. His pictures looked normal, a little too perfect, maybe, but compared to the shirtless bathroom selfies most guys posted, Ryan seemed like a grown-up. He messaged me first. "You look like trouble in a good way." I rolled my eyes but smiled. After Caleb, I wanted lighthearted. Ryan was funny, quick with compliments that didn't feel recycled. He asked about my job, remembered details, even teased me about my obsession with iced coffee in winter. Within a week, he asked if he could come by. Not a date, he said. Just hanging out. Low pressure. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The evening he arrived, I opened the door and my stomach sank. The man standing there wasn't the Ryan from the photos. He was older, late 30s, maybe early 40s. His hair was thinning, his shirt wrinkled, and he smelled faintly of cigarettes. "You Ryan?" I asked, frozen in the doorway. He gave a lopsided smile. "Yeah, look, I should probably explain. I didn't move. The photos," he said, shifting awkwardly, "they're of my nephew. I know, but no one swipes right on me. Not as I really am. I just wanted a chance to prove I'm worth it." He raised his hands like a man caught stealing candy, waiting for me to slam the door. Every instinct screamed too, but some part of me, the part that had been lonely for months, the part that still doubted her own judgment after Caleb, hesitated. 5 minutes, I said finally. "Then you leave." Inside, he sat on the edge of my couch like a schoolboy in trouble. Up close, he looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and hands that twitched when he spoke. "I'm sorry," he said. I'm not good at this. Online stuff. I thought maybe if you met me, really met me, it'd be different." I stayed standing, arms crossed. "You lied to me. From the start." "I know." His voice cracked. "But I'm here. I came clean. Doesn't that count for something?" I wanted to throw him out. Instead, I heard myself asking if he wanted water. We talked awkwardly. He rambled about how he worked construction sometimes, though earlier he'd claimed to be an engineer. He complained about fake women online who only wanted money or attention. I half listened, my guard up. Then he leaned forward. "You're different," he said softly. "I can tell. You're not like them." Something in his eyes unsettled me. Desperate. Hungry. I stood. "It's late. You should go." He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, sure." At the door, he paused. He reached into his pocket. My chest tightened. He pulled out a knife. Not a huge one, but sharp, gleaming under my porch light. "I could have killed you tonight," he said casually, almost smiling. Every drop of blood drained from my body. Then he laughed. A sharp, barking laugh. "Relax. I'm kidding." He slipped the knife back into his pocket. "Just a joke." Before I could respond, he turned and walked to his car. He waved once, got in, and drove away. I stood frozen in the doorway long after his taillights disappeared. That night, I barely slept. My brain replayed the words over and over. "I could have killed you tonight." Was it a threat? A test? A twisted sense of humor? I told myself it was just a creepy joke. But when I checked my phone the next morning, there was a new message. "Had fun last night. Hope you did too. We should do it again." I blocked him immediately. For days, I jumped at shadows. Every knock on the door, every crunch of gravel outside made my heart race. I told a few friends, but their reactions range from, "That's terrifying," to, "Well, at least he left, right?" But the dread didn't fade. One night, walking to my car after work, I noticed a scrap of paper tucked under the wiper blade. My hand shook as I unfolded it. In blocky handwriting, it read, "I wasn't kidding." I dropped it like it was on fire. My eyes scanned the lot. Dark cars, empty rows. No one in sight. I called the police. The officer listened politely, but his expression said it all. "He came over voluntarily? You let him in?" "Yes, but he had a knife." He said, "But he didn't hurt you. And unless he directly threatens you again, there's not much we can do." I felt invisible. "What about the note?" He shrugged. "Hard to prove he left it. Could be anyone." My advice? Stay alert. Don't engage. Stay alert. As if I wasn't already sleeping with the lights on, flinching at every sound. Weeks passed. No more notes. No messages. I convinced myself maybe he'd moved on. Until one night, lying in bed, I heard it. A slow scrape at my window. I sat up, heart pounding. The blind shifted just slightly. I froze. Then a whisper. My name. Drawn out, barely audible. "Ashley." I lunged for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. By the time the police arrived, the yard was empty. The officer shined a flashlight along the grass, found faint shoe prints near the window, and frowned. "This time you've got something," he said. "We'll patrol the area for a while." But patrols end, and I was still alone in that house. I moved 2 months later, changed my number, deleted every dating app. But sometimes late at night, when the wind rattles the blinds, I hear it again. That whisper, that laugh. And I remember the way he said it. So casual, like ordering dinner. "I could have killed you tonight." Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't. The truth is, I'll never really know. My name is Olivia, but I go by Liv because Olivia makes people expect grace I don't have. I'm tall in a way that makes chairs look small. I knock my knee on every coffee table I meet. I live in Portland in a studio with a view of a brick wall that leaks rain down the side like a clock. I'm the person who laughs too loud at the wrong moment and then blushes red. If you're trying to picture me, think of the girl at a party who stands near the snacks. So she has a reason to stay standing. I downloaded a dating app because the winter was long and the rain never stopped, and the grocery store conversation about whether apples count as a buy one get one had been the only human interaction I'd had in 3 days. I told myself I'd be careful. Public places. Daylight, if possible. No house dates. I said all the rules like a prayer. That's how I met Ethan Rivers. His photos weren't showy. A beanie and a hoodie. A desk with a tablet and a sketch. A bike leaned against a fence covered in flyers. His bio said freelance graphic designer, which in Portland could mean working with real clients or just drawing owls on tote bags for craft fairs. He messaged first. "Your profile says you like pasta. I make a mean carbonara." I answered, "I like pasta that uses more cheese than is reasonable." He sent back a smile and a photo of a pan with spaghetti that looked glossy in the good way. We messaged for a week. He was dry funny, not mean funny. He remembered small things I said, like how I take my coffee and that I prefer dogs to cats, but always end up with cat hair on my coat anyway. When he asked me over to his place for dinner, I hesitated. I could hear my rules like alarms in my head. He countered fast. "If you'd rather meet somewhere, I get it. I make a good pasta, and my kitchen is my comfort zone." He added a selfie of him at a stove with steam fogging the camera and wrote, "Pasta peace treaty?" I said yes against my better judgment. I told 3 friends where I was going. I share my location. I set an alarm to buzz me an hour into the date in case I needed an excuse to leave. I wore a sweater big enough to feel like armor and boots I could run in if I needed to, which felt like a joke until it didn't. His building was old brick with a door that stuck. He buzzed me up. His apartment was small, clean, a couch that looked like it had been bought from someone named Kyle off Marketplace, and a TV mounted too high. An expensive-looking bottle of red wine sat open on the counter, which didn't match the thrift store couch. "Welcome, Liv," he said, like he knew my nickname would land easier. He hugged me a little too long. He smelled like cedar chips and something sharp underneath I couldn't name. "Thanks," I said. "Where's the pasta magic?" He laughed and lifted his hands. "About that. I messed up the timing. The market was out of pancetta. Can you believe it? I have wine, though. Good wine." He poured before I could answer. It was a deep red that stained the glass like paint. I took a small sip. It was good in a way my mouth knew, but couldn't name. He filled my glass again before I'd set it down. I lifted it anyway, because I am polite even when I don't want to be. "Let's put on a movie while we wait for the delivery," he said, gesturing toward the TV. I ordered pasta from a place down the street. It'll be better than anything I could make, honestly. Relief should have come. It didn't. My head felt too light already. I asked for water. He poured more wine and said, "This has water in it," like it was a joke. When I didn't laugh, he put a glass of tap water in front of me. The glass had tiny scratches all over it like it had been cleaned with sand. "What do you want to watch?" I asked, trying to control something. I like old movies. Nothing too scary. I jump at everything. He smiled slow. "Have you seen a Serbian film?" I shook my head because I'm not a horror movie person unless it's October and the daylight is long. "What's it about?" "It's an art film," he said. "People overreact to it. They don't get it. Maybe something else?" I offered. "I'm kind of soft." He already had the remote in his hand. "Trust me," he said. "It's important to push your boundaries sometimes." He clicked play. The opening minutes were bad in a way that made my skin crawl. It wasn't jump scares, it was worse, gross in the bones. The wine in my head fuzzed the edges of my thoughts, and I kept having to blink to bring the room back into focus. Ethan sat close, too close, and every time I shifted away, he seemed to find a reason to adjust and fill the space again. "Hey," I said after a scene that made me want to brush my teeth and shower at the same time. "Can we please watch something else? This feels, I don't know." He tilted his head like he was listening to music I couldn't hear. "This is a critique of how media uses bodies," he said. "It's uncomfortable because it's supposed to be. People who say it's disturbing are just scared of their own reactions." His voice had gone smooth in a way that made me think of a knife edge. "I'm one of those people," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Scared of my own reactions. Can we turn it off?" He raised the remote like he might pause it, then put it down on the other side of him, away from me. "If you can't finish it," he said softly, "that's okay. But I think you can. You look strong to me." It was nothing and everything. A compliment shaped like a dare. He reached for my glass and refilled it without asking. I took the water again instead, hands shaking just enough that the glass clinked against my ring. He put his hand on my knee like we were already allowed to touch each other. My body went rigid. "Don't," I said, and I was proud that my voice stayed calm. "Please." He held his hand there, but didn't press down. "I like how tall you are," he said, eyes flicking over me like a scan. "You look like you could pick me up." "I'm going to call the pasta place," I said. "See how much longer." I stood and realized I was a little unsteady. The room tilted and then righted. I pulled my phone from my pocket. He was up too fast, like he'd been waiting for me to stand. "I'll check," he said. "They know me." He took a quick step and my phone slipped from my fingers because my grip wasn't good. He caught it midair. He smiled. "Got it. Give it back," I said and put out my hand. He looked at the screen and then at me. "No passcode." He laughed. "You're trusting. That's rare." I reached again. He stepped backward, putting the couch between us, and set my phone on the far arm next to the remote. "Just sit," he said. "I'll take care of you." All at once the room felt small. The TV's sound seemed louder. I heard something in his voice that wasn't there when he messaged me about pasta. It was there now. Ownership. Ethan, I said, careful. I'm leaving. He made a face like I just mispronounced a word. You barely got here. You lied about the food, I said. I told you I didn't want to watch this, and you turn it on anyway. You keep filling my glass, and you're too close. I'm done. He laughed once, a short broken sound. I'm the one who invited you. I bought the wine. I'm not a bad guy. You don't need to be dramatic. He moved around the couch, slow. I stepped toward the door and realized my boots felt heavy. The lock was one of those slick flat ones people install because they look good even if they're hard to turn. I put my hand on it anyway because sometimes your body knows before your brain does. Okay, he said, hands up like a magician about to show a trick. Okay, you can go. I don't want you to feel unsafe. He smiled, and the smile was wrong. But one kiss. I cook for you. You didn't cook, I said. We're connecting, he said, as if the words themselves could make that true. He stepped closer again. The TV showed something I refused to look at. The sound made my stomach twist. I asked you not to touch me, I said. Please move. He didn't. He put his hand on my hip like he owned it. It was a small hand for a man who called himself strong. I pushed it off hard. No. Something in his face dropped thin, like the mask that people wear when they pretend to be reasonable slid off. The look underneath was an old look. It said I'm owed. He stood very still, and for a second I thought he might lunge. Instead he leaned forward, close to my ear, and breathed in like he was smelling me. His breath was warm and wrong. He made a sound then, soft at first, almost like a laugh that couldn't find its shape. It grew into something I don't know how to write as a word. It was a screech, low and animal and stuck, a noise that shouldn't come from a person's throat. My body bucked away from it before my brain could think what to do. Good girl, he whispered afterward, and the words made my skin feel like it didn't fit. I turned the lock. He didn't stop me. I think part of him still believed I would come back in, like this was a cigarette break during a movie. I opened the door and walked fast down the hall. I didn't run because I knew if I ran, he would too. I reached the stairs and took them two at a time. My hand slid on the railing. The front door squealed the way it had when I came in. The night air hit my face like water. I didn't look back until I was in my car with the doors locked and the engine on. When I did, he was in the window, not waving, not doing anything. Just watching, face blank, the TV behind him painting the room wrong colors. My hand shook so hard I had to grip the wheel with all my fingers to keep it steady. I drove to a lit gas station and sat under the harsh lights with the sound of the pump beeping in the next lane. My phone had a smear on the screen where his thumb had been. I wiped it on my sweater like that could erase the touch. I reported it because I knew that if I didn't, I would turn the whole thing into a story that got shorter every time I told it until it disappeared. The officer at the desk was younger than me and had the kind of face that says sorry before the words do. "He didn't physically harm you?" she asked, typing. "No," I said, but he showed me a movie I asked him to turn off, kept filling my glass, took my phone for a second, touched me after I said no, and made a noise that I stopped. The noise felt like a private thing I didn't want to hand to the room. He made a noise, I finished, and I felt scared. She nodded like she'd heard it before, because maybe she had in different shapes. "We can take a report," she said. "We can flag the address for extra patrols for a while. If he contacts you again, save everything. If he shows up at your place, call immediately. If you want a restraining order, this is a good first step." I signed my name on a line with a cheap pen that didn't want to work. On my way out, she said, "You did everything right." I didn't feel like I had done anything right. I had gone to a stranger's apartment after dark because he said the word pasta in a tone I wanted to believe. I had ignored my rules because I didn't want to be the difficult one. I had sat on a couch and let a man put his hand on my knee because sometimes saying no feels like you're stabbing someone even when they're the one holding the knife. I texted my friends that I was okay and then told them everything. They came over with pizza and bottled water and the kind of jokes that only work when you love the person you're saying them to. We watched a cooking show with the volume low. At some point, I fell asleep with my head on someone's shoulder like a child on a bus. Ethan didn't contact me. He didn't need to. For weeks he lived in my apartment anyway, in the corners, in the mirror, and the way the light looked wrong on the TV screen. I moved my couch closer to the door and put a key between my fingers when I walked from the laundry room to my place like every article tells you to. I thought about changing my name back to Olivia just to feel like someone else. One afternoon, months later, I was at a stoplight and saw a man who looked like him crossing with a paper bag and his shoulders hunched. My heart sprinted. It wasn't him. It doesn't matter. My body had already run the race. I sat there, light green, the car behind me honking like a metronome, and breathed until my fingers came back. People ask me why I filed a report if nothing happened. I tell them it did. It happened when a man put a movie on and told me the feeling in my stomach was a failure, not a signal. It happened when he smiled and filled my glass after I said no. It happened when he touched me like I was an object in a house he owned and made a sound that animals make when they have a kill in their mouth. Sometimes horror is a knife. Sometimes it's a screech. The last thing I'll say is this. If someone invites you over for pasta and all you see is wine, leave. If a person insists on pushing your boundaries, remember your boundaries are a fence around your life, not a suggestion. And if you hear a sound you know is wrong, trust your legs more than your brain and run until you find loud light and a bored cashier who will look you in the face and ask if you want a receipt. Take the receipt. It proves you were somewhere else. It proves you left. It proves you are still here. My name is Maddie, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that monsters don't always look like monsters when you first meet them. Sometimes they look like a charming guy in a leather jacket who tells you you're beautiful when you're too young to know how rare that word should be. I was 15 when I met Aaron Pierce. He was 21. I should have known better, but at that age, attention feels like oxygen. He had a car, a crooked smile, and the kind of confidence that made me feel small in a way I mistook for safety. He told me I was mature for my age. That should have been the red flag. Instead, it sounded like flattery. At first, Aaron made me feel like the world had color. He brought me coffee after school, waited outside with his headlights, cutting the dark, took me to diners where he'd order for me and call me babe like it was my name. My friends whispered warnings. My mom said he was too old, but Aaron told me they didn't understand us. He said he was the only one who would never leave me. And slowly, I believed him. By 17, I was living at his place more than my own. He convinced me my mom was controlling, that my friends were immature, that he was all I needed. When I cried, he held me. When I laughed, he kissed me. And when I made him angry, his voice turned sharp enough to cut. "You make me crazy," he'd say after slamming a door, then hold me so tightly I couldn't breathe. "Don't ever scare me like that again." The first time he hit me, I told myself it was an accident. He'd had too much to drink. He apologized until his throat was raw. He promised it would never happen again, but it did. By 19, I was pregnant. Aaron was thrilled at first. "We're going to be a family," he said, kissing my stomach like a stage act. But when Eli was born, reality stripped away his act. He didn't get a steady job. He drank more. He spent money we didn't have. He screamed at the baby when he cried too long. When Eli was 6 months old, Aaron started choking me during arguments. Not always enough to leave marks, but enough to remind me who was stronger. I told myself to endure it for Eli's sake. I told myself Aaron would get better, but he only got worse. The last night still replays in my head. Aaron came home with his friend Tyler, drunk and grinning like the devil. Eli was asleep in his crib. I was folding laundry when Aaron grabbed my arm. "Why is the house such a mess?" he demanded. "It's not," I said softly. "The baby. Always the baby," he snapped, his face darkening. "What about me?" I tried to pull free. That's when he hit me, hard enough to send me to the floor. Tyler laughed like it was a show. Aaron straddled me, pressing his forearm against my throat. His breath was sour. "You think you can live without me?" he hissed. "I'll kill you before I let you go." I clawed at his arm, vision swimming. Somewhere, Eli started crying. The sound seemed to snap something in me. I kicked with everything I had. Aaron staggered, cursing. That's when the sirens came. A neighbor had called the police after hearing the shouting. 2 officers burst through the door. Aaron tried to play it off. "She's fine, just a fight," but the red marks on my neck told the truth. They cuffed him while Tyler shouted that it was all a misunderstanding. For the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs. Aaron got 26 days in county jail. 26. Then he skipped town before probation officers could track him. I thought it was over. But months later, I saw his face on the news. He'd strangled another woman. This time, she didn't survive. Now Aaron is serving life in prison. People call it justice. I call it too late. I live with Eli, who's 5 now and loves dinosaurs. Sometimes he asks about his dad. I tell him his dad made bad choices. I don't tell him that I wake up some nights to phantom hands on my throat. I don't tell him that part of me still hears Aaron's voice whenever someone says they love me. Mostly, I don't tell him that I carry survivor's guilt like an anchor. Because another woman didn't get away. If you ask me what horror looks like, I wouldn't point to a haunted house or a shadow in the woods. I'd point to Aaron Pierce smiling across a diner booth, sliding me a cup of coffee, and making me believe I was lucky. That's the horror that hides in plain sight. My name is Ava, and when I was 19, I thought Tinder was just a joke. My roommates and I downloaded it one night in our Ashwood University dorm, swiping through profiles while eating pizza and laughing at the bios. None of us expected anything serious. For me, it turned into something far darker. I matched with someone calling themselves bleeding_muse. No photo of a face, just a black and white drawing of a bleeding heart surrounded by roses. His opening line wasn't "hey" or "what's up." It was a piece of poetry. She walks through mirrors and leaves blood where others leave shadows. I should have swiped left. Instead, I was intrigued. I messaged back, joking, creepy but creative. That's all it took. He started sending me more writing. Dark poems about death, obsession, the moon, and loneliness. At first, I thought it was edgy nonsense, something any angsty artist might scribble. But then he started weaving my name into the verses. Ava, carved into eternity. Ava, stitched in a bone. I laughed it off to my roommates, even screenshot a few lines to show them. Some people are way too online, I said. But deep down, I felt a cold unease. When I didn't reply for a while, he sent artwork. Charcoal sketches of faceless women, their names carved into their skin. One sketch had AVA across the chest in block letters. That's when I blocked him. I thought it was over. A week later, I was home for the weekend. My parents live on the edge of town, in a small house with a big yard. It was late, past midnight, and I couldn't sleep. I sat in bed, scrolling through my phone when I heard something outside, soft crunches in the grass. I told myself it was the wind or a raccoon. But then Moose, our old family dog, started growling low by the window. I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek. Someone stood in the backyard. A man, shirtless, pale in the moonlight, and carved into his chest, fresh and bleeding, was my name, Ava. I froze. My phone nearly slipped from my hand. I turned the flashlight on and pointed it through the glass. The light hit his face and I nearly screamed. It wasn't a stranger. It was Mark, my childhood friend's stepdad. I hadn't seen him in years. When I was a kid, he'd been friendly enough, quiet, always hanging around the edges at soccer games or school concerts. Nothing about him stood out, but here he was, grinning at me through the window, teeth jagged and yellow in the light. He pressed a finger to his lips, a silent ch-ch-ch. I stumbled back, heart in my throat, and screamed for my dad. He came running, baseball bat in hand. By the time we got outside, the yard was empty. Only footprints in the grass remained, leading toward the woods. We called the police. They searched but found nothing. The next day, the officer told us something that made my blood run colder. Mark had abandoned his family months earlier. His wife, my childhood friend's mom, had filed a missing persons report. His car was found outside town, empty. He hadn't been seen since, and now he was in my backyard. The police told me to stay alert, lock doors, keep lights on. But how do you stay alert when you don't know where someone is? It didn't stop there. Days later, I found a box on the porch. Inside was a dead rose, its petals soaked in something dark. Blood. I didn't need to ask whose. Then came the notes, slipped under the door, written in the same block letters he used in his art. I bleed for you. We are bound now. Don't run from your muse. I stopped sleeping. I jumped at every creak, every shadow. My parents tried to act calm, but I caught my mom crying in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't looking. My dad slept with the bat beside the bed. Campus police escorted me to class when I returned, but I never felt safe. Because Mark wasn't just watching. He was patient. He knew me. He'd known me since I was a little girl. That's what made it worse. It's been 3 years, and Mark has never been caught. Sometimes weeks go by without a sign. Then suddenly, a new note appears, or a flower left on my car, or a message in some anonymous account online. Your muse never leaves. I moved apartments twice, changed my number, deleted social media. It doesn't matter. He finds me. The police say he's obsessed, unstable, maybe dangerous. I know they're right, because the night I saw him in the yard, carved and bleeding, grinning with those jagged teeth, I saw something in his eyes. Not lust, not anger, devotion, the kind that destroys. And that's why every time I hear a sound outside my window, I hold my breath and wait, knowing one day Mark won't just be watching. One day my muse will come inside.